Spider-Man 2 deserved way more love. When this came out in 2023, the overall sentiment of this game was one of a game that did not live up to expectations. And as the months went on, somehow the narrative for this game turned to being about how it was a bad game, or even an underwhelming one, or at its worst, a failure. Now these are fair opinions to have, and all of them are totally valid if you think that. But also, if you think this game is bad, I need to see your brain CAT scan immediately. Spider-Man 2 improves upon the first game in nearly every way, and yet this game is still viewed as the biggest disappointment since My Son. I am convinced this is somehow some evil scheme cooked up by the Green Goblin that has infected the minds of the youth, that this game is somehow bad. And with this game now being released on PC, I wanted to look at why this game is actually great, and why you should play it, and most of all, why Spider-Man 2 deserved way more love. Bigger is better. Spider-Man 2, like most Sony sequels from the PS4 to the PS5, falls under Cloudy of a Chance and Meatball Syndrome.
And bigger is better.
If you created a narrative video game that did great on the PS4, the sequel needs to be double in size, scope, and ambition for the PS5 sequel. It can fundamentally still share the core DNA of the first game, but it must go bigger. And I think the word that defines this generation of console gaming is spectacle. And Spider-Man 2 shows off the bat even more that this is its primary focus, flexing the power of the PS5 in the opening Sandman battle and showing that way higher level ambition this game is having on a technical and gameplay level from start to finish. And this increase in scale propels the game to succeed in way more areas than the first game. The first thing you notice in this game is the world is so much bigger now, allowing you to head to the Bronx, Queens, and it makes the world of New York feel so much more alive with you being able to cross East River. And the way you're able to move through the city with the swinging, oh my gosh, this is the best traversal mode in any video game, full stop. It's never gotten better than this. And it just works so well. The animations, the fluidity, the tricks, the momentum, it's just all so seamless and exciting, and I never get tired of it. The web wings are a delightful addition, allowing you to be able to coast for a few seconds before dropping you back into the skyscrapers to swing again. I think they're great. The only addition I could have done without are the wind tunnels. I've been to New York City, and I don't know if there was a level 5 tornado blazing through Chinatown that I didn't realize, yet that improvement from the first game to the second one in swinging is just as incredible as the gameplay improvement from the first to the second. Miles and Peter have drastically different abilities, but also the gameplay style of them is much more similar. You could say the gameplay is almost symbiotic between them. I just needed a transition, get me out of this segment. The new symbiotic gameplay is the main draw for the new gameplay changes in Spider-Man 2, and it's wonderful. The symbiote unlocks new abilities as Peter that allows you to smash people against the wall, use your tendrils to yank everyone down into a big mesh on the floor. You can turn into a big spiky ball, and you can even go into a rage mode like God of War where you have unlimited abilities during this time. And the gameplay of also switching the abilities to quick button presses instead of the item wheel from the first game does a great job of speeding up combat and increasing the momentum of a fight, which I think does an even better job of translating how Spider-Man should feel into these games. And it's such a solid foundation for Spider-Man's combat that it's so fun to play, as you're going to want to be able to tackle every part that this game has to offer in the game's main campaign. And let's talk about that main narrative. Spider-Man 2's narrative follows Peter and Miles as they work together as the new Spider-Man of New York City, as the threat of bigger foes in New York draws Kraven the Hunter to New York to hunt the best prey in the world. Who is this prey though? We don't know. It's a constantly changing question throughout the campaign, and one that is always interesting, and it leads to more monsters being revealed as the city turns into a living jungle. The game's narrative naturally is one of intense scale. It is tying in 2 whole games of backstory and building off of it while also introducing Kraven and Venom. You also got Harry, Mysterio, the symbiotes, and so much more of the returning cast from the first game. It's insane. What this ends up doing is creating a game that on a spectacle level absolutely dwarfs the first game with what it is able to do. Just the variety due to the story that is constructed alone allows the missions in the different environments and battles you fight in variety to be absolutely incredible. No part of this game ever feels like the same, and it constantly feels like the game is evolving throughout the course of the narrative. The way the story evolves visually and the differences in biomes and interiors and exterior locations for these set pieces is just incredible. And I gotta say, I know a lot of people make fun of Insomniac's visual direction for their Marvel Spider-Man universe, but I just absolutely love it. This is such an increase in ambition and quality from the first game that I don't think enough people talk about the visual interesting ways they're able to translate the comics into this new universe. The direction of this game is so well done, and the way that the conflict and huge set pieces are created is just done with so much technical precision that it creates these individual levels that are just so insanely well done that I remember them for years later. Coney Island, Sandman, the final boss battle, the arena, Mysterio, the lizard rampage, the 2 boats. This game just has so many more insane moments in the first game. It's just impossible to put this game down off a pure enjoyment level. This game is absolutely chimp brain certified. The story overall sometimes falters in logic, but the amount of "oh, that was dope, bro" moments leads to my chimp brain taking over, and I don't care. I like big lizards, look at my channel. And that increase in characters and narrative threads from the main story leads to the biggest improvement I think of this game, and that is the fleshing out of the world outside of the main narrative. Side missions took a huge leap in quality, with key foundational narrative elements now present in these side missions, driving you to play them unlike the first game where I'm collecting farts for Harry. The side content here also feels necessary to the story, and it's a shame if you miss it. The side missions are just as good as the main narrative, with boss battles, unique creative missions, and bases for you to just expand your combat on. And the diversity in these missions as well, due to the different narrative elements at play, makes this game one of the most fun collectathons I've ever played, and one of the only games that I've actually 100%ed. Why did I 100% this game? Because I like my Spider-Man to look pretty. Next question. I feel like every Spider-Man fan will be happy with the amount of customization in this game, and it allows you to unlock the amazing Spider-Man 2 suit and swing around at golden hour, which is all I wanted in my life. But why does the beauty of this game make me yearn with a deep feeling of longing for memories gone by? I'll tell you why, because if your brain couldn't notice it while you're playing, your soul did, and that's the lack of an emotional narrative. Just like with God of War and its sequel, the emotional core of this game's story was somewhat sacrificed for higher ambition and focusing on spectacle and scope rather than character. And the biggest problem, I think, is the underdevelopment of certain story beats when compared to its comic counterparts. Full-on spoilers from here on out. People love the darkness of the symbiote storyline and the allegory for addiction and how relatable it is to see a character as good as Spider-Man struggle with the physical pain of overcoming addiction. For a lot of us, that's a relatable struggle. Here though, in this game, he never really goes into the depths of the darkness and never puts his established relationships in that much peril. The symbiote leads to great narrative moments in this game, don't get me wrong, but it never leads to moments that make the symbiote so horrifying that removing the symbiote would give us such a huge relief of catharsis. When he takes the symbiote off in this game, it's really cool and effective, but it doesn't really hit as strong as it should. And that kinda goes the same for Venom. Venom struggles as a character when he is adapted because there are two roads you go down when you're adapting this character. You either have goofy Fortnite character, or you basically just have evil incarnate. Here, they go down that monster route, yet they also try to give him some motivations, and it feels kinda clunky. Venom's motivations are dubious as he symbiotically latches on to Harry's ideas about healing the world. It doesn't really make sense for Venom with how he wants to turn Earth into a symbiote planet, and Harry never fully elaborates on why he thinks this is a good idea outside of his mind being corrupted. Venom is just evil, and taking over the world feels really undersimplified for a character and lacks the nuance that many expect out of him. But he has to be fitted into this cookie-cutter role of being evil and taking over the world due to the spectacle that he has to fulfill of being the bad guy that is taking over the city. Miles also gets sidelined in this story. He's just doing a college essay. The Lizard never fully gets to shine as a character on his own before he turns into Mark Zuckerberg. And the character I think they adapted the best still doesn't fully work, and that is Kraven. He is in my favorite Spider-Man comic ever written, and it's because he's an extremely human Spider-Man villain. His battle with cancer and depression I think is fascinating, one of the most realistic takes on a villain. And here they do explore that through the bases. The more bases you complete in the story, the more you get to learn about Kraven, and he gets more interesting the more you flesh him out. And he gets really engaging when he starts killing off the Sinister Six. That desperation is incredible within the story, but I don't ever think they go to that darkness that character is rooted in. I don't think this game ever goes into the darkness of what his suicidal endeavor means or why he is willing to throw away his life. It never really feels that it's mature enough to tackle these topics, and it's really unfortunate for a character as interesting and nuanced as Kraven. He's such a fascinating ticking time clock of a character, and he has all the right motives here. It's just that the story never fully gets there with the emotional complexity of a character like that. It's close though, and I think that's the tricky part of this game. Most of this isn't poorly written. The character designs, the performances from the actors, and the storylines are good. It's just that they don't elevate themselves with the emotional and thematic undertone for a deeper, complex connection to these characters. And I think that's why a lot of people felt disappointed with these villains compared to Doc Ock in the first game, because he felt like a person, and these villains feel more like cartoons. And that's fine. You can have Saturday morning cartoons, but it's also a very big departure from what the first game established. Yet did this game fail as a game even though it came up short to its predecessor with its story? Not at all. Spider-Man 2 had the impossible task of being a bigger game map-wise. It had to add new gameplay, it had to completely read the entire side missions, expand the open world, and it ended up creating a fantastic new story that was bigger and larger, and also that somehow had to top the first one one with its scope and ambition. This game had a deadline. It was produced within 3 years after the sequel of Miles Morales, and they had so much that they had to achieve. And yet at the same time, this was a big home run for Insomniac. They still made an absolutely great game that is a bigger, messier banger that I absolutely adore. And no matter what you say, this game improved everything that I wanted a Spider-Man sequel to improve. It improved the gameplay, it improved the swinging, and it added even more stuff in the open world that was super fun and engaging as side missions, and it created this humongous story. And I just wanted something after the first game that was bigger. I wanted more Spider-Man, and you know what? Maybe bigger is better. And that's why Spider-Man 2 deserves more love. But Miles, take off that suit. I don't ever want to see that atrocity in my house ever again. I'll rip it off your skin with my bare hands.